What's up, ladies and gents, Noli here, and welcome to another Payday 2 video. Today, I'm excited to bring you a style of video I never have before. We're going to be having a close look today at certain voice lines added on the Prison Safe House heist, which I have only recently found out about. Now, these voice lines will only play when you're in the process of stealing the Necro Cloaker's gold, and they will play as somewhat of a supposed deterrent meant to put off and distract your characters from the job they're currently doing, because of course this is a sort of dreamlike state you are in, and the Necro Cloaker is all-knowing. In some ways, it's your conscience. And so these lines give some fantastic backstory about certain characters, tease potential future content updates, and I think they're also just incredibly spooky and worth a listen to if you haven't already. So guys, get ready. I'm going to be running you through every single character's lines, and hopefully we're going to analyze and work out some, well, I suppose, some future possibilities that will come out of them.
My brother has powerful friends.
You got Hector, but someone else is also lying to you. Jim, you're the toughest of us. Me, I'll die young. I know I will.
So before I get on to dissecting what's going through Hoxton's mind, I'd just like to give a really big shout out to Hoxalicious and his YouTube channel. The link to the particular video, which obviously a lot of the inspiration of this video came from, is found down below. He always uploads videos of things like character voice lines when they are released. He goes through the audio files, uploads them, and they're well worth a listen to anyone who's super interested in Payday and specifically interested in the lore and obviously just hearing the character voice lines. They upload really quickly, and I, for one, try not to miss his videos because it's very useful information for me. And yeah, like I said, he's the one who essentially drew my attention to these extremely cool voice lines. And as I said, we're going to talk about Hoxton right now. So the first of his voice lines, the other two are obviously about him. The first is one that I am speculating may well be about him. It's the accent there that is really confusing me. It sounds to me like an Eastern European accent, you know, and I think that the first thought that probably sprung to everyone's mind is that it's actually Vlad's sister going on about Vlad, but who is it really in the Payday gang who's going to get spooked by a strong Vlad? I mean, he seems like a nice enough guy, he's pretty helpful, one of the only contracts who, you know, he actually seems pretty straight to us, crazy, but straight to us. So it got me thinking, whose sister would be threatening? And my immediate thought was Hector. I don't really know the ins and outs of the Colombian accent, but it certainly seems possible to me that that is what this is, and it's a threat aimed, of course, at Hoxton, who went and killed the rat. So that's the first one. Again, that's speculation. If you guys have other ideas, I'd love to hear them down in the comment section below. There's actually a huge amount of discussion going on all over the place about these character lines on the Reddit, on Steam community, so this is just another place for you guys to discuss it. The other two lines are so exciting, though. I'm going to start with the last one. This was, we can assume, some form of Old English crew member of Hoxton's. Obviously, he's been in the job for a fairly long time now. I believe it's actually voiced by Pete Gold, the voice actor for Hoxton. I don't think I can really detect a huge difference, so it almost sounds like it could be Hoxton's brother. But I do like the sentiment in the line, and I think it throws back to the number of gangs that Hoxton may have ran with, and number of regrets he, of course, has surrounding that. And then finally, the one that I think everyone is talking about outside of Jacket, which we'll get onto later, is, of course, the line teasing that there may be another rat. There may be someone else Hoxton has to worry about. Now, you could easily put this down to paranoia. I mean, what these voice lines are essentially the deepest fears floating around in people's heads. However, for the most part, the rest of them we're going to go through are actual events and things that have happened. They are not speculation. So I think we can assume there's a degree of honesty here, and I think we can assume that the Hoxton saga did not finish with Hoxton's revenge. Let's move on to the next voice lines.
Nicholas, no!
As you just found out, sadly, not all characters have as many voice lines on this heist as others. The cry of Nicholas No is, of course, aimed at Chains, who is seen to have some form of girlfriend or lover in the John Wick trailer. And of course, that same lover refers to him as Nicholas, we've known for a little while that is his name. So no massive details given about Chains here, other than the fact that prior to the addition of this woman, Chains didn't have much of a background other than the military background we were given. There was no family, and so this is good. I think there needs to be more structure and care and reason for being within these heisters, and that's exactly what this is.
They're all dead. All of them!
Rochelle, what are you doing?
Next up, we're taking a look at Clover. However, you may not have known that just from the voice lines. The name Rochelle has, I believe, previously not been associated with her, but we can be certain it is her name. Of course, Rochelle does have sort of a Gaelic-sounding background as well, so fits with her being Irish. And again, the more information we get about characters and their backstory, it just gives them a little more personality. Now, the second line is a bit confusing. I don't know what it has to do with anything, really. I can't think of any sort of atrocious crimes Clover has committed. I can't think of how the voice line is associated with it. However, it is confirmed that this voice line will play for Clover. So if you guys have any more details about that particular line, because it's pretty spooky, especially the fact that we don't know much about it, do let me know down below.
Honey? What are you doing?
Bonnie's voice line is reasonably self-explanatory. This is likely the voice of Chuck, the first of the husbands, which she killed off in order to claim their insurance money. She was involved in these honeymoon murders in the 90s, and it's a big part of her backstory. What's interesting is this voice line playing suggests there is a certain level of guilt surrounding this, which is not really akin to her character. Also, when researching a little bit about Bonnie, I came across, of course, the link to a certain lady called Juliana Morales. We don't know who this lady is, how she is related to Hector Morales, but I feel like this may well go back to our very first voice line aimed at Hoxton about a certain brother's powerful friends. Not positive, but certainly some speculation to be done there.
Dallas! Ah! I'm hurt! Houston! I'm hurt! Help me!
You call yourself Hoxton, right? More like Houston, because you've just got a fucking problem.
I thought I'd play Dallas and Houston's together. They are, of course, brothers, and their biggest fear comes from the idea of losing one another. Houston also shows some additional fear, that of being replaced, of course, with the return of Hoxton. He was sort of sidelined and had no real choice in the matter. He kind of just keeled over and took it, and that, of course, is still ringing in the back of his mind.
Огонь! 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 Давай, вали их!
Sergei, why are you doing this? You belong here, on the ice.
Sokol's voice lines also have a certain ambiguity around them. First of all, of course, the woman calls him Sergei, which is not a name we've ever seen associated with him before. In fact, it was actually assumed that his real name was Sokol based on the fact that it appears on his hockey jersey. So that is on the confusing side. However, I think we can assume Sergei must be his real name, because why else would she be using it? The idea that he should stay on the ice and remain a hockey player is, of course, pretty obvious, but I think that the reason why it's been given by this female voice is that this might have been a sort of old flame from the past that was associated with his hockey career. When he played hockey, he was with her, and so the two things are synonymous. It's not so much that he misses hockey, he misses that lifestyle. And of course, the other one is some loud Russian shouting and firing. And this one's also quite confusing, because initially I didn't think this one could even be aimed at Sokol. It was implied that he was generally a heister when he did heist in Russia who preferred stealthy missions, so it might just be that this is a fear of a mission going wrong, or the remembrance of a mission that did go wrong a long time ago.
I don't want you to die, Jimmy.
I imagine to get a little bit more understanding out of this line, you actually need to have seen the Hardcore Henry film, which I personally have not as of yet, to my shame. And as such, this line, I can only really take it at face value. It's a woman who at one point in time meant a lot to Jimmy, and he obviously meant a lot to her. And his lifestyle, his career meant that that was never going to work. She didn't want him to die, and maybe something happened to her, which resulted in his a bit more than split personalities and going off the rails, essentially, and his obvious dependence on drugs and all those things. I think there's a sort of underlying factor running throughout a lot of these heisters that previous broken relationships have left them in the situation they are currently in.
Dragan sine, ponosan sam na tebe. Jednog dana bit ćeš odličan policajac.
Dragon, please don't do it. Dragon!
Dragan's lines are actually reasonably soul-searching. The first one is relatively obvious. It's his betrayal of Interpol and the police force and his partner at the time. However, the second one comes from his father and is in Croatian, and it's talking about how he is proud of him and he expects him to make a fantastic police officer. This suggests that there are regrets in his mind about the way his career eventually went, the corruption he followed, and the honest original desire to become a good police officer. And this is fantastic, I think, for characters that are difficult to find redeemable. Obviously, you are kind of playing the bad guys in Payday. Yeah, you love it, but you're playing the bad guys, but you do see little bits of personality in these voice lines that I think we've never seen before, and it was so easy for Overkill to do. I'd love them in the future to embellish more on this style.
A trail of corpses. That will be your legacy. Does it make you happy?
You're a killer, John. That's all you know. All you are.
Alltså, det han gjorde med den där hunden. Jag förstår inte. Det skrämmer mig.
John Wick actually received a surprising number of voice lines in this particular heist. The first two are relatively self-explanatory. They're him questioning his morality, the number of people he has killed, and I feel like the first one could quite easily be attributed to Wolf as well. However, maybe he's just a bit too much of a psychopath to be concerned about how many people he's knocked off. The final one is actually, I believe, in Swedish, and it is discussing the death of his dog, of course, the primary plot line for the first John Wick film, which plagues him to this day.
Men vad gör du?
Speaking of Wolf, sadly he only received a single voice line. It is also in Swedish, and it's just the question, "What are you doing?" Now, I find it quite difficult to read the inflection and tone of this. It's just a simple question, you know, it could be asked to anyone, but it's either one of two things. It's either a frightened "what are you doing?" like, what is this maniac about to do? Which is very fitting to Wolf, but that's not really something he is frightened of. These are not fears that the Necrocloaker should be playing on. Instead, I feel like it's maybe a family member just being generally disapproving of him in his past. What are you doing? You know, like a parent scolds their child. It's got that disapproving, harsh tone to it, which may go back to, well, why Wolf is so unhinged these days.
あなたはヤクザに参加する場合は、私たちのコードで生活しなければなりません。
Jiro's lines revolve around his time in the Yakuza and the heartache caused by that. The first of the lines in Japanese roughly translates to, "If you wish to join the Yakuza, you must follow our lifestyle, be like us," which is never something he wished for. And the second of the lines is the more heart-wrenching one. It's the almost death scream of his wife Yoshimi crying out for him. Of course, that is the big part of Jiro's story. We were to expect some sort of Jiro heist surrounding this deep lore they set up in that beautiful trailer, but we've yet to have seen it, and really all these lines have done is make me even thirstier for that piece of content.
Tom, don't go there. Stay. Please.
Rust, thought we were brothers.
Rust's lines are incredibly self-explanatory. They come from members of the bikie gang, which he of course betrayed. It shows that that act of betrayal is playing on his mind. I doubt it's something he regrets hugely, but it was somewhat cowardly, I suppose, is one way of looking at it, and those thoughts are still lingering, and the cloak is picking up on them.
Come and join me.
Bodhi's line does not give us an awful lot of information about the character. Really, it just comes from his Point Break character and is expanding on that.
No one loves you, Kelly. They're all afraid of you.
Kelly! No!
Sydney's lines are easily pickable by the use of her name, Kelly, and honestly, they don't give a massive amount of additional information about the character. The use of this male voice screaming, Kelly, no, is nothing more than confusing to me. The accent doesn't make a huge amount of sense. It honestly sounds more Irish than Australian. I don't know whether this is supposed to be back from her days when she was heisting in Australia. I think the first one is a little more self-explanatory. This is, by the sounds of things, her mother. We know her parents are incredibly disapproving. Might explain why she is how she is. Her parents were being interviewed by the police department, and they were very willing to give up their daughter. There's no love lost between them, and that's further affirmed here.
Battery power is low. Please change battery. You are responsible. Your name is not Jacket.
And finally, we have Jacket's tapes. These are, if you ask me, the most haunting and terrifying and interesting and open-ended we have seen throughout the entire list. I can't wait to talk to you about them. The first of the three is the most self-explanatory, but is still incredibly chilling all the same. This battery low is obviously one of his biggest fears. What if his cassette player, runs out of battery? How does he communicate? Does he have to speak? It's the fear of being completely deafened, or the fear of having to open himself up, that's seriously bothering him here. We also have this line, you are responsible. Responsible for what? All the atrocities that Jacket is supposed to have committed? Or is he just telling himself he is responsible because he wishes to be? Because that is the big fan theory surrounding the Jacket we have in Payday 2. Maybe he is an imposter, an impersonator, and not the real one. And this definitely gives rise to even greater speculation, especially when the tape recorder themselves say, you are not Jacket. So there you have it. That is the best line, the most haunting, fantastically delivered. I love it. The suggestion being, this is not the real Jacket, or maybe there's still a possibility there that it's just Jacket's consciousness, telling him, you're someone else. Is he actually Richard or one of the other speculated names for himself? Would that give him a greater sense of self and maybe make him slightly less crazy? Anyway, guys, let me know not only about Jacket, because I think he is the one we can speculate the most about. Hoxton's also super interesting. Let me know what you guys think. This is an incredibly interesting topic to talk about. I loved having a look through these lines again. Big shout out to Hoxalicious for bringing all this content to my attention, whether he meant to or not. And that's a lot for watching this video, ladies and gents. Can't wait to see you all in the next one.